What's going on, everybody? We are here at the table yet again, and today we're finally talking about America's rifle, the AR-15. You know, I made that video on the 870 America's shotgun, and I really do believe that the AR-15 is America's rifle. Since the 60s, it's just nothing has come close to matching this thing's modularity, ease of use, reliability, weight, as compared to other rifles in its class. You just go down the list, man. Nobody touches the AR-15. And every time the military, for whatever reason, comes out and they're like, we need a new rifle to fit the times, the AR-15 just keeps smoking them sideways, right? So, love the AR-15. Even though we don't talk about them much, I do have a great love for them. So, today we're going to be talking about the Colt SOCOM upper receiver. Now, it's currently mounted on an Aero Precision lower, as you can see there. The cloners of the world are going to start having their left eye twitch right about now. And look, I don't need a pony and a script there that says for government use only for this to be considered a Colt rifle by me. You know, a lot of people consider the lower the rifle. That's what makes it the rifle, right? And I think we need to examine ourselves there. I think you've been brainwashed by the government to say that this is the rifle because that's what they think is the rifle. I would just submit to you, the day that I let the government do my thinking for me, I will have a tag on my toe. So to me, the lower receiver is wildly unimportant, okay? A good old Palmetto, Aero, all these brands are making receivers that are just fine. And if somebody's going to roll in sideways and try to say Colt's better, listen, man, I love you, but take a hike. That is absolutely absurd, and I will not hear those arguments because I've heard them before. It's the guys that want to justify spending $400 on a lower so they got a pony. Sorry, just not going there. I think the most important part of the rifle is the heart. That's up here. It's the barrel, it's the bolt carrier group. That's where your money's got to be, okay? So, don't care about the Colt lower stuff. Somebody else can fight that fight. So I have two questions I want to ask about this rifle today in this video. One is, what's different about this versus, say, a Palmetto? And why would you buy this over a Palmetto? Now, with a rifle like this, and really when you're talking about like Colt, Daniel Defense, BCM, all these companies that are making sort of the military spec rifles and all that good stuff, you have to bring up Palmetto. They're just a force in this industry. Like, to me, Palmetto is, in the AR-15 world, what TSOS is in the 1911 world. It's so hard to justify sometimes going to the expensive guys when these other guys exist that are doing it so well. And, Palmetto, they are just the people's rifle. They are a company that hears us and responds to us, and they're making a great product at an affordable price. And that makes purchases like these really, really difficult to justify. I do think there's some justification, but it's really slim. It's really thin, and I'm just going to be really upfront. This is not a video of me defending this purchase because, frankly, I think there's very little reason to get one of these over a Palmetto, but there are some, and they're legitimate, and that's what we'll get into. Now, off to the side here, I do have my house gun, which is a Palmetto build. This is, this rifle cost me $450. It's a 16-inch mid-length, medium profile barrel, free float, pretty simple stuff. And I've got a Daniel Defense fixed front sight and an Ultradyne rear sight, just a solid hitter, man. And this thing is a laser beam. I've got buddies who are like, man, you need to put a low power variable optic on there and make it a recce rifle. And that'd be cool, but my disdain for the tactical turtleneck community forces me to keep irons on it. So I wanted to show you guys, I love Palmetto, and that's not my only Palmetto. All my other rifles are Palmetto. This is the only one that's not a Palmetto, but this one's a little bit more interesting to talk about, in my opinion. So let's just get into the video, and let's answer the first question. What's the deal with this upper receiver? What's different about it from, say, something that looks seemingly identical on Palmetto's website for a fraction of the cost. Now, starting with cost, this upper receiver cost me $950. Okay, so they're not cheap. In fact, you could probably go on Palmetto right now and find an upper that looks a lot like it for like $300, maybe $400. All right, so just starting from the rear, we're going to start with the rear sight. So it comes with this MATEC, MATEC, MATEC. I don't know. Somebody with a turtleneck on is going to tell me how I'm supposed to pronounce that. Comes with this rear sight, and I actually really like this rear sight. Very simple. It's got one aperture in the back. It's one size. You don't have this stupid options thing where I need a long-range peep sight. Dude, get out of town with that. Just put a hole in the thing and let's go. And so I really like simple, just one piece of steel there, simple aperture. I zero mine at with a 50/200 yard zero. And so I like that we start at 200 on this sight. And of course you have your very simple elevation graduations. Everything about this sight, everything is tight, clicks into place, really stiff. You know, all your adjustments are tight. I really like it. It feels like a really well done rear sight. Moving forward, nothing to write home about with the receiver. It does have a good bolt carrier group. So there you go. Just your good old Colt bolt carrier group and bolt. Good stuff. Moving forward, this is where we start to get a little bit unique. So we have the Knights Armament RAS system, the rail system, well proven in war for the past 20 years, 20-something years in the Middle East. These rail systems are awesome. They're heavy and they're heavy duty. So you get both the good and the bad with this guy. And what's cool about this is it doesn't just come with the rail. It comes with the full complement of all the Knight stuff. You've got the foregrip. You've got a bunch of panels it comes with. So this is like the full kind of block one modular setup out of the box with this system. Moving forward, we have this front sling swivel that's a side mount versus going underneath here. I think this is a great addition, and a lot of people, the cloners are always really after these, and particularly this upper receiver in general for the block one cloners. This is like very sought after for that kind of stuff. Now, the barrel itself is really where things get, I think, particularly special. And what you have is a SOCOM barrel. And what that means is, like, from here forward, everything looks pretty standard minus the flash hider. It's really right here where the magic happens. Underneath here, you have a very thick profile barrel. All right, I went ahead and cracked it open so you guys can see this. Look at the size of that barrel, man. That thing is thick with 3 C's. So the idea behind this is that is where the barrel is going to get really hot and take a lot of hell first. It's right around the chamber, and then those first few inches of rifling, man, that is where the barrel gets the most abuse under heavy sustained fire. And so the idea here is it is designed not just to last have a long life, but also to really handle that heat and that abuse under sustained fire really well. All right, and then finally at the nose, we have the factory pinned and welded extended A2 flash hider, which a bunch of people have like serious vitriol about. I don't really get the anger. Look, it's a flash hider, guys. I don't know. I don't get the big deal. So that's kind of the deal. This rifle, or this upper, is a pretty basic setup for $950. So why would you buy this over a Palmetto? Well, here's the deal. First of all, the barrel. That's probably the biggest thing, and that's really the biggest reason I bought it. Now, could you get a heavier, maybe higher end barrel from a Palmetto? Absolutely you could. But I just think there's something about these military contractor rifles, these guys who have been doing this for a while, the BCMs, Daniel Defense and Colt, where they are just making a very high quality barrel. Particularly, I think probably at the top of that list is Daniel Defense, but I think Colt and BCM are close second. And so for me, to answer the question, why would you buy this over, say, a Palmetto? Well, I wanted a rifle, an AR-15, that is going to last a long time, and it is a hard use, heavy use AR-15. It's one that you don't have to have that itching question in the back of your mind. How long is this going to last, right? Because let's be honest, almost none of us have ever shot out an AR-15. Okay, I certainly haven't. I'll own that right up front. Now, I've seen torture tests of rifles. I've seen guys like Grantham has a great video on the Palmetto stuff where they shot a rifle a lot, and they just wanted to see how does it hold up, right? And it held up very well. But when you're talking about down the road, when you get into the tens of thousands of rounds, I've seen a lot of people talk about how they just don't keep those tight groups. The rifling isn't as intact as some of these better barrels. So really the barrel is the main thing where like that is the biggest selling point of something like this. And that's why you would buy something like this. Now, I think another great selling point about this upper is, let's say you were going to go buy, say, a BCM stripped upper receiver of the same type, right? Carbine length, 14.5-inch barrel, blah, blah, blah. If you were then going to go and buy this sight and this rail system and this front sling and try to make a copy of this rifle, you would usually pay more money. So to get an equivalent quality upper receiver with the same spread of parts, you're usually going to pay more if you try to build this like a la carte per se. So to me, I actually think if you're going for this sort of rifle, this is actually quite a good value. You get a really high quality barrel. You got a really good rail system, really good rear sight. You got the little side swivel sling mount. Like, this is pretty solid for the price when you actually start parting this out and try to build it yourself. So the first question to have answered is, what is it? Well, it's kind of a heavy-duty Colt-barreled AR-15. Why would you buy this over, say, a Palmetto that you could probably get for really cheap? Because this is going to last longer. And that's really about it, guys. This is not going to be a really hard sell from me on like, yeah, you got to buy Colt. It's way better. It's going to last longer. That I'm sure of. How much longer? I don't know. I haven't done that testing. I know other people have, and I trust their data. But, you know, if you want just that little bit extra, that little bit better, that's going to last longer and stand up under really heavy use, yeah, I think this is a great option, and I think you can trust it. And frankly, I think for $950, you get a pretty solid package for the money. Now, I'm going to close this out with really 2 points: my overall experience with this rifle, and then why I chose this rifle. So I want to start with that last question there, why. So a lot of people, and myself included, you know, I showed you guys my Palmetto upper that I have, or my rifle that I have beside me here. And why would I choose a carbine length, 14.5-inch, A-post mounted, kind of old school rifle over the super modern, lightweight, tactical, high-speed turtleneck stuff? Well, because, and here's the controversial part, I think this is peak M4. I think this is peak rifle. You know, people make all of these arguments and these claims about like the free float stuff. Man, if you're gonna get hits at 800 meters, you gotta free float that barrel, and you just hear this stuff, man. Hey, guy, I'm not shooting anybody at 800 meters. Okay, so there's my first big qualm with that argument. I don't like that argument. Good luck justifying that in a court of law. I'll just throw that out there. I'll also say this, for the Boogaloo boys with their Hawaiian shirts that are just jonesing for a civil war, which I think is really dark and evil, if you ask me. Those guys, I just want to ask this question. If somebody's 800 meters away, do you think you're far enough away from them to maybe get away? Because that's a way better option than getting in a gunfight. I don't know about you guys. I'm kind of not wanting to get into a gunfight. That's just me. I'm weird, probably. So all the arguments people make about, oh, you lose accuracy and, you know, free float the balance and you can't get the super extendo thumb forward grippy tactical thing. Again, take a hike with that, bro. That's just those arguments ain't gonna fly here. I don't care about any of that. So for me, I need a good rifle that's, yeah, okay, I want to hit maybe like 100 or 200 yards. That's probably max. Right? Realistic. Let's be frank. It needs to be like minute of living room. That's really probably closer to home for most of us. So I don't really buy into those arguments. I actually think this system, the 14.5-inch gun with the carbine length system, is actually really great. Now, look, I've owned the guns where you try to like super tune them to just eliminate recoil, right? Mid-length, free float, you're tuning buffers, you're tuning gas tubes, you're tuning ammo, you're doing all this stuff to get that gun super flat shooting. You got the brakes on there, everything's super tactical, right? But here's the problem. You start riding a really thin line of reliability. And I've experienced that where I had a rifle that was mid-length, comped out, tuned out with the buffers, mid-length gas system, all the good stuff, right? 14.5-inch gun. And it would run 5.56 okay. It would not run 2.23 because it's slightly lower pressure. And so you start messing with the reliability. And then on top of that, when the gun starts to get really dirty, again, you're riding a really fine line. I want to stay away from that line. So for me, the 14.5-inch gun with the 7-inch with the carbine length gas system, some people call it over-gassed. I think it's appropriately gassed to be reliable. Okay? I don't care about the suppressed stuff. I don't care about the super flat shooting stuff. I want reliability, and I think this system is supremely reliable. Now, what I've done to maybe tame down some of that over-gasness is I do have an H buffer in the gun, and it, I think that pretty much knocks down maybe some of the perceived edge, but here's a little reminder, everybody. The stunning recoil of a 2.23 is not that bad to begin with. Like, we're not even shooting like, a bolt-action rifle with a steel butt pad where you're just absorbing all the recoil. This is a recoil-operated weapon system with a spring in it, and we're talking about taming the intense recoil of this? Come on, guys. I think this is where things just enter the absurd. So for me, I chose this rifle, absolutely on purpose. I wanted it to really have that reliability intact, and I don't even want to have to question it. I don't want to think about ammo. I don't want to think about it being dirty. I want it to run. Now, the last point is my experience with the rifle. So look, I got to say, there is something about this rifle that is just solid. When you pick this thing up, nothing's wiggling, nothing creaks or clicks or bends or flexes. Everything about this upper receiver is really well done. It just feels very sturdy. The added weight to the front of the rifle makes the gun feel really balanced. Yes, it is increased weight, but look, people hang a bunch of crap all over their rifles anyway, and then they're going to complain about my barrel being heavy. Come on. So the balance, the feel, it feels maximum sturdy. The rifle just feels really well built. The shooting side, yeah, it's an AR, man. It feels great. Again, the barrel lends to a really smooth, round recoil impulse. It does not feel sharp or slappy. And I will say, John Lovell with Warrior Poet Society made a video talking about Palmetto guns, and he makes a good point. If you shoot a lot, you spend a lot of time behind a rifle. He's a Daniel Defense guy. And he talks about in that video how there's an impulse that he's used to with his Daniel Defense rifles. It's very smooth. It's not slappy and loose, and you can't hear springs going boing and all these things. And then you pick up a Palmetto, and look, they're great. No hate on the Palmettos, but they are a little bit loosey-goosey. They are a slightly lower quality gun. And so you kind of feel that with this. When I go out and I compare this directly against my Palmetto, this gun feels smooth and stiff and just really like solid. It feels smooth and solid. So I hope that was informative and at least entertaining for you guys. Do I think this is worth the money? Well, it was for me, and I would buy it again. I'm very happy with this upper receiver. Look, I know Colt has a little bit of a storied history with quality control, but I don't think that's really, in my knowledge and my memory, could be totally wrong here. I don't think that's really been a problem with their rifles. I feel like their rifles have always been really good, especially the 6920s and the SOCOMs. I think they're good. They're good rifles, really. And my experience with this one has been great. One of the true tests of a rifle that I think has been built properly and QC'd well is how far from center do you have to drift that rear sight. I'm always very annoyed with rifles where it's like your rear sight is all the way slamming to one side. And I know people are going to respond with, well, it's in spec, doesn't really matter. Well, it does matter. When you're shouldering the rifle and you have to roll the rifle over so that the rear sight meets your eye because it's so cockeyed, that's annoying. That's really annoying. I want that rifle to shoot straight as possible out of the box. And I will say, you guys probably can't see that super well, but this one is very close to center. You can see that little white notch on the sight. It's very close to center. So I don't know how many clicks off I am, but it's really, really nice. So there it is. That is the Colt upper receiver, the SOCOM. I think they're worth the money. And I think in general, I think it's worth it to have one of these, like the BCMs, the Daniel Defense, the Colts, in stock, just as that like really high quality, heavy duty kind of rifle. So that's my philosophy anyway. Tell me what you're rocking. You know, are you a Palmetto team guy, or are you rocking something maybe a little bit more expensive? Look, I don't think there's a bad guy in this fight. I think we live in the golden age of gear, and that is the beautiful thing, is you can get a quality rifle as cheap as $400, which is absolutely insane. And then you can go real high up and you can spend thousands, $3,000-4,000 on just a stripped rifle from like a Noveski or something like that. And so, look, there's a price tier for everybody. For me, I kind of think this is where I stop as far as what I'm going to spend on an AR. I think you just start to get into diminishing returns and kind of some snake oil stuff when you get up into those real expensive guys. And look, I've owned a Daniel Defense V11. I've owned a lot of Noveski products. I have owned a lot of LaRue products. I've owned the expensive stuff, and like most things in my life, I've just realized that some of the more basic mid-tier stuff is really where your best value's at. So anyway, would love to hear from you guys. What are you rocking and rolling? And look forward to your comments in general. Okay, everybody, we'll see you on the next one.